The Whistling Goat, Arizona, 2015. In the sweltering heat of an Arizona summer, I embarked on one of my regular solo hikes, an 8 to 10 hour journey through arid desert and into the sparse, pine-covered mountains. Hiking alone had become my sanctuary, a ritual to silence the noise of everyday life. This particular trail was obscure, hidden behind a thick wall of dry brush, almost as if nature herself didn't want it to be found. The path was faint, nearly erased by time. As I moved forward, the terrain shifted. Trees became skeletal, their limbs broken or strewn across the trail. The forest felt dead, abandoned. Thorny underbrush began to close in on both sides. Still, the trail was just clear enough to follow. Then, I heard it. A soft whistle, distant but deliberate, echoing from higher up the mountain. It held a melody, 3 or 4 notes repeated with intention, then silence. I paused, my heart giving a slight flutter. Perhaps another hiker? But the trail was too hidden, too forgotten. 20 minutes passed. I climbed higher, each step swallowed by the silence of dead branches crunching underfoot, until the whistle returned. This time, it was closer, louder, too close. Something primal stirred in me. I gripped my pocket knife, advancing cautiously until I was forced off the path by a fallen tree covered in thorns. Circling around, I stumbled into a small valley, an old riverbed, long since dried. In the center sat a den, intricately constructed from thick branches and sticks, shaped with such precision it could not have been accidental. Then came the whistle, right behind me. Spinning around, my blood turned to ice. A goat stood at the edge of the valley, still as death. Its eyes locked onto mine, not like an animal, but like something aware. It was massive, larger than any goat I'd seen, its presence unnervingly human. I took a step back. It opened its mouth and whistled. The same haunting tune. I bolted, crashing through brush, tumbling over rocks and dead wood. I didn't stop until I saw the beginning of the trail again. The last thing I heard, softly echoing through the trees, was that same whistle. I told no one, not until years later, when I learned what a skinwalker was. Suddenly, it all made sense. The Thing in the Woods, Wisconsin. Every summer, my family and a few others would gather at a campsite deep in the woods of Wisconsin. It became tradition. The dads would organize a snipe hunt for us kids. For those unfamiliar, a snipe hunt is a prank. Snipes aren't real, just an excuse to tell spooky stories and scare the kids a little. This year felt no different. On the second night of the trip, Dad and his best friend Billy gathered all the kids and announced that they'd heard a snipe near the RV the night before. Excited, we grabbed sticks and flashlights, ready for battle. My sister and I were ecstatic. We truly believed this was the year we'd finally see one. We marched into the woods under the moonlight. 10 minutes in, rustling came from above. Billy leapt from the bushes, covered in fake blood, screaming, "It got me!" Chaos erupted. Children screamed, scattering in every direction. I was 8, too young to know it was a joke. I ran blindly until I found a thick bush near a tree and dove in, shaking, trying not to cry. And then, everything went silent. I peeked out and saw it. Something was moving through the trees. At first, I thought it was a dog, but its legs were all wrong, long, spindly, bending like sticks. Its head was twisted, asymmetrical. Sparse patches of hair clung to its body like mange, and the sound, a soft, guttural moan, drifted on the wind. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I felt an emotion I had no words for then. Dread, not fear. Dread. Something deep and wrong. Then I heard twigs snapping behind me, my name being called. The creature froze and stared straight at me. Before I could scream, my dad burst through the brush, scooped me up, and began scolding me for running. I tried to explain, babbling about what I'd seen, but he just laughed. It was all a prank, he said. But what I saw wasn't a prank, and it wasn't a coyote. Years later, I'd learn about skinwalkers. That's when the pieces fell into place. The Silent Deer, Canada. We lived in a remote cabin deep in the Canadian wilderness. My wife, 2 kids, and I. No roads led to our home, just faint trails winding through thick forest, connecting us with the other scattered cabins in the area. Life was quiet, self-sustained, peaceful, until it wasn't. One late night, while reading by the fireplace, I heard the cattle outside panicking, hooves pounding, snorting in distress. I rushed to the window. Under the pale moonlight, I saw them huddled at the far end of the field, staring across toward the tree line. Then I saw it. A deer, or what looked like a deer. It stood half hidden behind a tree, perfectly still, staring toward the house. Its presence set me on edge. Something wasn't right. Why would a deer scare the cattle? I dismissed it, uneasy. Weeks later, my wife woke me in the dead of night, her face pale. "Listen," she whispered. Something was dragging along the outside walls of the cabin, slowly, methodically, like a stick scraping the wood. It circled the entire house, then stopped. I grabbed my rifle, checked the kids, and looked out each window. Nothing, until the last one, our bedroom window. There it was again. The deer, standing just beyond the tree line, not moving, not blinking, staring straight at me. Something ancient and cold settled in my chest. The next morning, I trekked to my neighbor's cabin, a mile away. I needed to know if anyone else had seen something. Halfway there, I felt it, eyes on me. Turning, I saw it. The deer, 15 feet away, standing on the trail, watching. But now I noticed its eyes, too much white in the iris, small human-like pupils. My legs gave out. I ran the rest of the way. When I told my neighbor, his face didn't show surprise, only solemn understanding. He told me stories of the Navajo skinwalkers, creatures that appeared when disturbed, or when they wanted something. I didn't ask what it wanted from me. We moved back to town a few months later. I never told my family what I saw, or what my neighbor said. That secret was mine. But I still remember its eyes. And even now, sometimes, when the forest grows too quiet, I feel it watching again.